we get to talk about the Mariners,
Woohoo!
even though they are done. 2017 is over for them.
Officially now.
We get to talk about 2018, kind of with an off-season preview maybe, or just kind of discuss what they can do moving forward to kind of end this playoff drought that we're experiencing. As people, we don't deserve this, so let's move on. Let's make this team better and get them into the playoffs. Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service have talked a lot about this idea of the wolf pack mentality when it comes to pitching. The idea is that you can send a guy out there for 3 or 4 innings, maybe once, maybe twice through the opponent's lineup, and then you got to get him out of there and get the next guy in there to eat up some more innings. I think a lot of this stems from the numerical side of baseball, the sabermetric side of baseball, where GMs and managers might not be looking at games in particular, but innings as a whole on the season and how their clubs are going to get through innings. So with guys like Erasmo Ramirez, Marco Gonzalez, Andrew Moore, Ariel Miranda, it kind of makes sense that they only go out there and throw 3, 4, 5 innings. It's a new way of thinking in the game of baseball, and I need both of your thoughts on it. Like, will it work? Does it make sense? Is it worth trying? You guys tell me what you think.
It makes sense if the Mariners pitchers are only going to throw 5 innings an outing anyway. You might as well cut them off at 3 innings or whenever they're through that first time through the lineup and just go to the bullpen, simply because they're going to be less effective the more times that they face the same hitters.
Makes sense. DJ, what do you think about it?
There's positives and negatives to both of these, but I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Christian. I kind of like the idea. I know DiPoto is big into the sabermetrics of baseball, and that's kind of where baseball as a whole is headed to. As I look at the roster right now, James Paxton, Felix Hernandez, Mike Leake, Erasmo Ramirez, Ariel Miranda, Andrew Moore, and Marco Gonzalez. You got a mix of old guys, young guys, and guys who don't know how to stay healthy. And so, if they're only going 5 innings for the old guys, it's going to limit their innings. For the young guys, teams won't be able to get as much film on them, so they won't be able to figure them out as quickly. I think it's something that we could try next year, but I'm in agreement with you. If we're going to try it, you got to stick to that.
Yeah.
The one downfall about that is, it is going to stress your bullpen a little bit with all of those innings.
I don't think it necessarily is going to stress the bullpen. The reason being, I mean, the idea behind it is brought up because historically, almost every pitcher ever is the best that they're going to be one time through the lineup. We saw Marco Gonzalez. I don't think he's ever made it through a lineup 3 times. He gets tore up the 3rd time people get to see him.
Yeah.
So the idea is to cut him off. And, like you mentioned, DJ, it works if the organization and the field managers are going to stick to it throughout the entire year.
Yes.
I don't think your bullpen needs to... I don't think your bullpen would end up stressed. And the reason being, if a starter goes out there and goes 3 innings, and then the next guy comes in and goes 3 innings, all of a sudden we're in the top of the 7th. And that's when bullpens are going to work anyway.
Yeah.
So, that's 3 innings to get through 3 pitchers, 5 total pitching changes, which that's probably close to the average of pitching changes you see anyway in a game. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
The one thing that I'm thinking about right now is, what if a guy, the second guy, for example, comes in and is struggling? Like, you might be limited to just sticking with him instead of making that change, because with 5 pitching changes, I know sometimes the quick changes are a guy comes in, faces one batter based on matchups, and then another pitcher comes in and faces the other one, and then maybe we switch again. So, I mean, you only got so many spots on your roster. So,
yeah, Seth, what do you think about that? Maybe they bring in a guy, or the first guy struggles, doesn't make it out of that first 3 innings.
Well, that's my concern too, is that somebody's going to have a bad night, and that's going to ruin this rotation where everybody pitches just a couple innings, and it's going to get skewed by people just going into cold streaks and slumps. I think it can work, but they're going to need to get more long-term relievers or more starting pitching.
Well, long-term relievers is all they got.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, between Erasmo, we already mentioned their names, but you know, I don't see why not. But also, I get why you want to run a guy out there for 7 straight innings.
Yeah, no.
Like I get that, but
especially if he's on.
But at the same time, the Mariners struggled so much with health. What if you didn't use him less?
I think it would. Like I said, one of the big reasons I am in favor of this is because I think it would reduce innings for the old guys, and you could prolong the young guys' careers, because not a lot of people, a lot of people are still stuck in the traditional sense where, a pitcher, you got to go out and get me, 5 or 6 innings. This would prolong the young guys' career to maybe where you can adopt this system and keep them healthy for longer in your organization.
If we're going to spitball baseball ideas right now, I read a book over the summer. It's called Ahead of the Curve by Brian Kinney. He's on MLB Network very often.
Yes.
A very forward-thinking, kind of proving the old traditional way of baseball, kind of proving it wrong. It's very entertaining. I'll loan it out to you guys if you want it. I loved it. And it talks about how the first inning is the toughest inning to get through on the mound, simply because every offense is set up to perform optimally to begin a game. Because
we saw that last night in the wild card game.
Let's look at the Mariners, or last night in the wild card game. Let's look at the Mariners. Gene Segura, Mitch Haniger, Ben Gamble, and then Robinson Cano. I mean, that's a pretty good chance you're going to have somebody in scoring position by the time Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, and Kyle Seager come up.
Yep.
However, if you get through that first inning 1, 2, 3, do you want Nelson Cruz to lead off an inning? Not really, because that's not where he hits ever. So it only works in that first inning. That being said, who is the toughest pitcher that the Mariners have across the board to face? It's probably Edwin Diaz. So if teams all of a sudden thought, hey, these first 3 outs could be the most important outs, like you said last night in the wild card game, they could have been. They didn't end up being, but they could have been. What if teams run their closer out there to start a game?
It's an interesting thought.
What if Edwin Diaz goes bang, bang, bang through the first 3 batters, and then you bring in James Paxton?
That is wow.
That's interesting. But you do need somebody who's comfortable in those high-pressure situations to close down a 1-run game in the 9th inning.
Which 3 outs are the most important in a baseball game? You don't know.
A case can be made for either the last 3 or the first 3. There's that saying where it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. Going down the stretch, that does provide some pretty some pretty good excitement in like the 7th, 8th, or 9th innings. Those are also. I've also heard people say closing is the hardest position in baseball too, because the outs are so there's so much pressure behind those, and there's such a high price.
Why? I don't agree with that at all, because if you're coming in to close a game, the other team is the one that has to push.
Yeah.
You go out there and throw 3 strikes. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy into the closer's the toughest role. That's me, a half athlete, watching the game, having never done it, going, okay, they're losing, you're winning, just go throw strikes.
Yeah. I mean, those strikes, though, those got to be well placed, because if you got a 1-run lead, then, you can't give that up. You have no room for error. And throwing a strike, and especially painting the outside corner, hitting the inside corner, up and away, things like that, that is a very tough job mentally.